Chapter 65. Isla passed the Vicarage Road Stadium, approaching a massive activity around the normally unguarded hospital entrance where all vehicles were now being directed. The day-glow-jacketed security staff were wearing masks as they engaged each driver at the front of the queue that snaked towards the main road. The absence of life across the rest of the town was in stark contrast to the chaos engulfing this small road. There were sirens, car horns, and desperate yells, all directed at the two blokes guarding the hospital entrance. A security guard came up to her with a Watford FC scarf around his face, demanding that she stop. "Where are you going? This is now a restricted area." "My mum and dad are in there. I don't know where." "You can't come in unless you have clearance." "Clearance? What sort of clearance? My dad phoned me and said my mum is sick in hospital. What sort of clearance do I need to respond to that?" The security guard softened his tone, but the rules were not changing. "Look, love, I'm really sorry. No one's allowed in unless they're dropping someone off or need medical attention themselves. There's no exceptions. I'm sorry, but it's for your safety." Safety be buggered. Isla knew all the back ways into the hospital from all the times she'd staggered in and out of all-night staff parties, but before she'd had time to move away, her phone rang. It was her dad. "Dad, I'm outside and they won't let me in." "Hi, Miss Kylie? I'm sorry, this is not your dad. I'm one of the doctors on duty here, and I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news." Isla gulped. She suspected that this was the news she'd been dreading. Her mum had COVID-19 and was going to be isolated. Her dad was with her and wouldn't be able to phone her. "I'm outside. I can come in right now and see my mum, but the security people won't let me in." She was begging. Her parents were the only people she had in the world. "I'm sorry. I don't know how much you know. Your mum is very sick with COVID-19 and she might not have long left." Isla paused. In her heart, she knew what he was going to say. "Thank you, doctor. I'm prepared for this. Can I come in and see her now? Is that allowed? Thanks for letting me know, but where's my dad? Why are you calling? Can I not just come in?" "Isla, I'm so sorry, but your dad collapsed. We think it was a heart attack." "Was?" Isla dropped to the floor, her phone crashing from her hands to the pavement, disconnecting the call. The guard in the scarf ran towards her, adjusting his mask before reaching her. She'd fallen hard but wasn't hurt, reaching for her phone, desperate to continue the conversation. The phone rang again. As she pulled herself up from the ground, tears streaming down her face, she could hear her name being called down the line. Steadying herself, she took a breath and resumed the conversation. "Is that the doctor?" "Isla, I'm sorry. Are you okay? I don't know how much you heard. The line dropped. I'm by the main entrance and I think you're going to tell me my dad is dead and my mum is about to die." She didn't need it spelled out. The task was hard enough for the medical staff without her needing to be spoon-fed. "Isla, I'm sorry. Let me send someone to come and get you. Please wait where you are." The security guard with her took a call on his radio and ushered her to the portable hut. He found a chair and offered her a spare mask which Isla put on, each of them applying hand gel as they waited for somebody to arrive. Isla went through the motions of appreciation to the security man, unable to offer anything more than basic platitudes. Her dad was gone and it was probably too late to see her mum. For the first time in her life she was on her own. The darkness of the evening wrapped itself around her. She sat alone, oblivious to the lights bouncing off the security guards who had resumed their attempts to control the mayhem around her. She gazed at the back of the Graham Taylor stand and the ground her dad had loved so much for his entire life, one of his only constants. Had loved. He was gone. He died yards from the stand dedicated to the club's most successful manager. In her head, all Isla could hear was the loud chanting from the stands. "One Graham Taylor! There's only one Graham Taylor!" As she struggled to hold herself together, a middle-aged nurse hurried towards her. "Are you Isla?" She slowly nodded in reluctant affirmation. "I'm sorry to meet you in these sad circumstances. I'm Sister Siobhan and I've been with your parents today. Would you like to come in with me?" Isla put on the plastic overall, rubber gloves and surgical mask the sister had put down 2 meters from her. They stopped at one of the rooms off the main reception area. Despite the chaos outside, this part of the hospital was empty. "Where is everyone?" "Once patients are dropped off, everyone has to leave. We're trying to limit the exposure of this awful virus. Isla, I'm so sorry, but we need to protect you as well, so we won't be leaving this room." Isla understood. Even the most emotional person would see the sense in containment. If the country had been locked down sooner, this may never have happened. She thought of Jakob, incredulous that the nightclub where he was working was still open tonight, when a short distance away people were dying of this terrible virus. Her face gripped with rage. His lazy indifference had stopped her from seeing her dear parents before they died. Where is Mum now? Isla, your mum is very sick. She came in earlier today, but she's been unwell for much longer. She couldn't breathe and is on one of the COVID-19 wards. We've made her as comfortable as we can. Don't worry, she's being artificially ventilated, but there's no sign that she's suffering. That's not a good sign, is it? You've doped her up so she can die in peace. I'm sorry, Isla. I don't want to give you false hope, but she's unlikely to make it through the night. Your mum is asleep and in a really peaceful place. It's the best we can do. The sister was a woman of compassion and warmth. What about my dad? He was taken very suddenly. When he drove your mum in, she was seriously ill, and the shock of how bad she was, it just seemed to suddenly overtake him. When was this? They got here at lunchtime, but when it was clear to us how bad your mum's condition was, he wouldn't leave. He was showing symptoms, although they were not as bad. We started to treat him for the virus as a precaution, but he got upset when he realised how bad your mum was, so we let him stay after he called you as he said you were coming to get him, but then he suddenly collapsed about an hour ago. That's just after we spoke. I called to him and told him I was coming. I'm sorry, Isla. There was nothing we could do. We tried to resuscitate him. The shock was too much and just took him. Isla had spent her lifetime believing her parents were just partners of convenience, quietly cohabiting a world of passive interactions rather than living out the epic love stories she'd sought for herself. But the evidence suggested that her parents' love was one that went further than any public display of affection could indicate. It was far deeper, intrinsic, a private love just between them. Is there anyone I can call, Isla? Do you have somebody who can pick you up? I'm afraid we need to get you outside of the hospital grounds as soon as we can. Isla looked at her open bag, the unread copy of the Evening Standard poking out of the opening. No, there's no one. I'll call a cab. There is no one. I've got no one. I'm all alone.